Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to the No DQ recap of Monday Night Raw for December the 7th, 2020, as we continue on the road to the next pay-per-view, which is TLC. And this was the final episode of Raw at the Amway Center. Starting next week, Raw WWE programming moving forward will be at Tropicana Field. Now, for those of you that have not seen the photos and video, head over to NoDQ.com and you can see the construction of the new Thunderdome at Tropicana Field. With that being said, let's get down to the recap. Shout out to the chat room and everybody watching this, whether it's live or on demand. I very much appreciate it. If you do enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up, a like, and spread the word. So we had another tribute to Pat Patterson, everybody on the stage. Again, this time, all of the Raw superstars. Vince was once again there. And we had a 10-bell salute for Pat Patterson. We had Randy Orton come out for the first segment, and there was a recap shown from last week, and he talked about how he's no ordinary man. There is no boundary that he will not cross. And unlike The Fiend, he doesn't need a mask to show his darkness to the world. We had an interruption, of course, by the Firefly Funhouse with Bray Wyatt. And Randy Orton said he's not there to play games. And The Fiend had a game for us. We had a game called Let's Get Randy. The contestants were the puppets, and they all got the wrong answer. Nobody was correct. And Bray Wyatt said that he always has the right answer as to how Randy Orton should be punished at TLC by The Fiend. Back in the ring, Randy Orton was sick of it. He said he wants a match against, not The Fiend, but he wants a match with Bray Wyatt. And Bray Wyatt accepted the challenge, and that was our main event, which we'll talk to at the end of this recap. Segment was okay. It was amusing with Bray Wyatt, the usual stuff. It's fun. We even had the carcass of the frog from a few weeks ago. We had our first match of the evening, which was Asuka versus Shayna Baszler, and before the match, Nia Jax gave Shayna a pep talk, and they talked about Asuka, and then Nia brought up how after they get through with Asuka, Lana is next, and they are going to give Lana this hideous, ugly face. Psycho Jet Black with a $2 super chat, thank you for that, first one of the evening, says, is The Fiend versus Randy Orton heel versus heel? Great question. I think The Fiend is supposed to be the babyface, but does it really feel like that? It's hard to say at this point who we're supposed to be cheering for. I guess we just cheer whoever we want at this point. I don't know. The one and only Caleb Jacobs. Thank you for that, Caleb, and thank you, Psycho Jet Black. Caleb Jacobs with a $5 super chat says, I like this storyline. You do not know if Randy Orton is going to bury Bray again. Randy better run. I've seen mixed reactions to this storyline. Some people like it, some people don't. It's a mixed bag at this point, but we'll talk more about that at the end. We had this match with Asuka and Shayna Baszler. Shayna worked over the arm, and they exchanged submissions. Asuka tried to get the Asuka lock on. And on the outside of the ring, we had Nia Jax and Lana. Nia Jax sent Lana into the ring post, and then Lana managed to escape from Nia Jax, and Nia Jax got sent into the steel steps. Lana went up on the apron and leaped towards Nia. Nia caught her, but Lana managed to counter with a Hurricane Rana and sent Nia into the announce table. As all this was going on, it was Shayna who got distracted. Stupid heel, but a stupid heel is always more logical than a stupid baby face because, you know, we want to cheer people that are smart. It's just natural for us human beings. we don't want to cheer the idiots unless we're cheering Forrest Gump or somebody like that. But anyways, Shayna was distracted. Asuka won with the roll-up, the fruit roll-up. And yeah, I guess we just keep doing these singles matches, and that's the build-up for the tag team match at the pay-per-view. You know, not really a lot going on here, but whatever. Backstage, we had the Hurt Business arriving, and they yelled at one of the backstage workers. We had a recap of the AJ Styles and Drew McIntyre storyline. I just wanted to say a lot of recaps on this show. A lot of filler, more recaps it seemed than usual. I guess when you have a 3-hour show, you have to stretch out the segments, and that's what they did, and show replays from last week. I just feel like SmackDown moves at such a faster pace because it's 2 hours. They get to the point. We don't have these long recaps, and the matches don't go longer than they need to. The promos don't go longer than they need to. It's such a big difference. Like, it really does. The third hour, and I sound like a broken record. I say it every single week. The third hour just kills Raw every week for me. And next segment, we had Matt Riddle, or Riddle, whatever. I'm going to keep calling him Matt Riddle. I don't care. Matt Riddle was looking for MVP, but he ran into Ricochet and Dana Brooke, who were getting ready for a mixed tag team match. And Ricochet was talking about how he's not opposed to being on a tag team. He admits that there is strength in numbers. And we had this match, Slapjack and Reckoning against Matt Riddle and Dana Brooke. Not a whole lot to it. Pretty short match, actually. And we had Ali on the outside of the ring. And he was trying to give instructions to Reckoning. And she ended up being distracted by him. Dana Brooke took advantage and scored the pinfall victory. Once again, stupid heel. The heels are the ones that are getting distracted, and it's costing them matches on this show. At least Reckoning's mask did not fall off this week. But yeah, she lost again. Pretty short match here. And afterwards, Ali was angry at Slapjack. He was angry at Reckoning. And I'm just angry that Retribution is still a thing at this point. It's time to cut the losses and move on. Do something different. It was a nice try. Well, maybe not such a nice try. It was pretty bad from the beginning, but I was trying to give it a chance. But now I say it's time to put it to pasture and let's leave it in 2020. That would be really nice. 2021, let's do something different. We had Keith Lee backstage confronting Sheamus, and Keith Lee, the gist of this is he doesn't buy into Sheamus's good guy routine. And Keith Lee said it's only a matter of time before Sheamus stabs Drew McIntyre in the back. And yes, a lot of people in the chat room agree Retribution needs to go. Although Todd says he likes Retribution. All right then, Todd. I mean, I guess even the worst gimmicks in wrestling have some fans. Aces and Eights had a couple of fans. Not every bad gimmick has 100% criticism. Even the worst can find a few fans here and there. Next up, we had Miz TV with special guest AJ Styles. And they talked about the WWE title TLC match, which is actually going to be a tables, ladders, and chairs match. Again, I say this all the time. Why do we need multiple matches with the same stipulation? Can we just have one, please? Like one War Games match, one Hell in the Cell. I mean, the matches are usually really good to great, but I just would prefer one match. Like, have one really special match. one special TLC match. When you do two, not quite as special. But yeah, they talked about the match. They talked about the Raw Handicap match. It's going to be the three of them against Sheamus and McIntyre. And Miz was mocking the accents of Drew McIntyre and Sheamus. Sheamus came down to the ring and said he's not alone. Drew McIntyre came down as well. And Drew was taking some shots at Miz and Morrison, saying how Miz has no balls, or if he does, Maurice keeps him in her purse, and talked about how Morrison is Miz's personal sidekick bitch. And basically, there was a brawl, and Miz and Morrison were cleared out of the ring. Not sure why we needed this segment when we had the match. Like, you can just do the match. Why do we need this long-winded Miz TV segment? Like, didn't really get me excited for the match. I'm just like, can we get to the point? I felt like this was a waste of time. It had a few funny moments, but, I don't think it was necessary on this show. Moving on here, we had Kofi Kingston versus Shelton Benjamin in a one-on-one match. Pretty short match here. Kofi was selling his knee, acting like he had an injury, but he managed to sidestep Shelton on the outside of the ring. He got back in. Shelton barely beat the count. He got in at like 9 and then was immediately hit with the Trouble in Paradise, the tip. And Kofi Kingston beats a not-so-game Shelton Benjamin. And after the match, Cedric Alexander, he wanted Kofi back in the ring. So Kofi accepted, and we had another match. Kofi this time against Cedric Alexander. Psycho Jet Black with a $5 super chat. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. He says, if The Miz has no chance of successfully cashing in Money in the Bank, why waste our times with these segments? Thank you. Miz is probably not going to win Money in the Bank unless somebody completely loses their mind. I don't see it happening. But stranger things have happened in the world of WWE. And I guess they want to make the Money in the Bank seem important by putting Miz in the segments, even if he does fail in the long run. But yeah, I would agree that it's wasting our time if there's no real payoff to it. DJW with the $2 super chat. Thank you, DJ. He says, 3 hours to fill, Aaron. Keep in mind, LOL. 3 errands to fill. That would really drive people nuts if there were 3 of me, 1 for each hour of Monday Night Raw. That would be just completely insane. But thank you for that super chat. I appreciate it, like I said. So we had Cedric versus Kofi. Kofi was still selling his knee, and he got a few near falls, but he couldn't really put Cedric away because of the knee. And Cedric took advantage of this and hit the lumbar check to win. Again, they're doing more singles matches with the challengers beating the champions in singles matches. Same thing as what's going on with the women. And, who really got over here? Cedric, he beat a guy that had to wrestle twice. And Kofi, yeah, he lost, but he wrestled twice. It's like, I don't really feel like anybody's stock was elevated from the match. The match was good, though. There's that. So at least you get some good wrestling on this show. Hamp Connell with a $2 super chat says, WWE loves the balls and purse line. I haven't really paid that much attention, but you're probably right. Put your head on a swivel. That one they always use. Like everybody, all the commentators use that line. Head on a swivel. Like that must be a Vince favorite. We had a Pat Patterson video package, the same one which was seen on Smackdown, which is really cool. I'm not going to say it's filler. Pat Patterson was a really big deal. So they wanted to dedicate a lot of TV time to paying tribute to Pat Patterson, which I'm totally fine with. If anybody deserves it, it's him. We then had Drew McIntyre and Sheamus in the handicapped match against Miz, Morrison, and AJ Styles, with Omos out there at ringside. Styles did not want to tag in, when McIntyre was in there. So there you go. Build up your challenger as a coward that's afraid to fight the world champion. It works in certain circumstances, but when you're trying to portray AJ Styles like he's a contender for the top championship in the world, well, I guess second top now because Roman Reigns is the Universal Champion, but still, you would want to maybe not do the coward gimmick with AJ Styles. That's just my opinion, though. Storyline in this match was, could Sheamus and McIntyre get along? Of course, Sheamus almost hit Drew McIntyre by mistake on the outside of the ring, and then they regained their composure, and they sent Morrison over the announce table, and Morrison actually landed right on the chair perfectly. That was pretty cool. This was a good match. It was a good match. Probably, well, yeah, maybe the best match on the show. The match later on with Lashley and Jeff Hardy was pretty solid too. Heels got the upper hand for a while, and then Drew McIntyre got the hot tag. He beat up Miz and Morrison, did a double suplex to both of them, and he was going to hit the Claymore on Morrison, but Miz made the save, and then Sheamus tagged back in, Styles tagged in, and Sheamus went for the bro kick, but he missed and hit Drew McIntyre. Styles took advantage of the miscommunication and hit the phenomenal forearm to pick up the victory. This was fine because it really wasn't a stupid babyface moment, you know. Sheamus just accidentally kicked Drew and AJ took advantage of the situation. Finish was fine. I had no problem with it. And you're building up the tension. I mean, really at this point, the one downside to this is I'm more interested in seeing Drew McIntyre versus Sheamus. Like, I'm ready for that. I know they're doing the slow build for it, but like I'm more excited about that than seeing McIntyre versus Styles, even though it's going to be a good match, of course, at TLC. But I like this build for McIntyre and Sheamus. Probably going to be at the Royal Rumble, or maybe not if Strowman comes back. But yeah, I'm pretty pumped for McIntyre versus Sheamus. That's been a good build-up so far. DJW with a very generous $10 super chat. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. He says, yo, Aaron, how much longer do you think it will be before AJ's associate gets physical, and how much of an impact will it be? I feel like he's a matchup problem for a lot of talents if he's booked correctly. The question is, will WWE have any confidence in putting him in the ring? Because clearly they're trying to hide his weakness, which is he cannot really wrestle very well. He's almost like a great Khali. Now, WWE did push Khali really strong. Will they do the same with Omos? Who knows? They might at some point. They might try to go with him. But, you know, in this era, it's about the work rate. It's about the guys that can go in the ring. It's been a while since WWE has pushed somebody who's not really that good, and in some cases piss poor, in a main event spot. Like, it's always somebody who can go in the ring. Khali was really the last guy, and Mahal was average, and he was probably the last guy that was average, but I would say pretty much every person who's been WWE champion or in the hunt, pushed strongly, like, they can go. The talent pool is arguably the strongest it's ever been. It's just the writing is, you know, borderline the worst it's ever been. And we have the pandemic on top of it. Hemp Connell with a $2 super chat says, does AJ Styles really need a bodyguard? Well, if he's a heel, it works fine, but I still think it should have been AJ Styles with Joseph Park, a.k.a. Abyss. Like, those guys have the chemistry, they have the history and Impact Wrestling, and those few segments they did on SmackDown, great stuff. Why is Joseph Park not on my television every week with AJ? And he can even do the split personality where he seems like this mild-mannered goofball, but then he snaps and becomes that other character. And that's what makes him very dangerous and what helps AJ Styles in the long run. I think they're missing out. I think that's a missed opportunity. Joseph Park should be on TV every week. Psycho Jet Black with a $2 super chat says, would Omos get a big push if he cuts good promos? That would help him. I don't know if it's a guarantee. I mean, look at EC3. EC3 could cut promos and WWE did nothing with him. But yeah, if Omos had something else going for him, whether it was promos or he could actually work really well, like he'd be pushed very strongly. And I think they still want to do something with him. They're just hopeful that, well, he'll get better over time. So we had Lana upset backstage about having to face Nia Jax on next week's edition of Monday Night Raw. And Asuka gave Lana this pep talk, how Lana can do it. She can beat Nia. Lana started saying it over and over, but then Nia Jax approached her, and Lana backed off, and Nia just shook her head in pure disgust at Lana having any kind of self-confidence. We'll see what happens with this one. Like, I feel we're going to get new tag team champions, but I want to see what happens on next week's show and if they end up doing a tables match or not. We had Sheamus backstage, and he was interviewed about what happened earlier with the accidental bro kick. He said he did not mean to attack McIntyre. McIntyre, however, confronted Sheamus and was not happy at all. And after the commercial break, a fight broke out between these two. Pat Buck tried to separate them, and that did not work. They actually worked together, and they buried the hatchet by beating up somebody. They slammed Pat Buck through the table in the backstage area, and Adam Pearce had to call for medical help. I wonder if this means McIntyre and Sheamus get indefinitely suspended now because they attacked an official. You know, how is that any different from what Strowman did to Adam Pearce a couple weeks ago? But whatever. Poor Pat Buck. I agree with you, Mr. Anderson. We had Lashley versus Hardy, which I briefly mentioned earlier. Good match. Good match between these two. And before the match, Matt Riddle was trying to pitch a new idea for Jeff Hardy. He said they could be the Hardy Bros, and their finisher could be the Broetry in motion. And Jeff was like, dude, I have to go. You know, when Jeff Hardy doesn't like your stoner shit, you're really annoying, because we know Jeff Hardy likes to have a good time, and if anybody could appreciate Matt Riddle, it would be Jeff Hardy. So when Hardy says you're nuts, you're in real trouble. DJW with a $5 super chat says, if Sheamus and Drew have a program, it should last all the way to WrestleMania. It has potential for sure. I would not be opposed to that. Like, I'm craving the match now, but if they could keep this story going and keep it interesting, I'm all for that. You know, do Strowman at Royal Rumble and maybe save Sheamus for WrestleMania. Maybe have Sheamus win the Royal Rumble again, only this time it would actually be for a real legit main event, not beating Daniel Bryan in 28 seconds. Mike B with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Mike B. Thank you guys for the super chats, by the way. Very much appreciated. He says, I did not watch Raw because I was watching my Bills beat the 49ers on Monday Night Football. Just came here for an awesome review. No DQ was the best. Appreciate it, Mike B. Thank you for tuning in, of course. So we had Hardy and Lashley in a match, and MVP was getting involved. He got on the apron, and Matt Riddle ran down, knocked MVP off the apron. Hardy made a comeback, and he hit the Whisper in the Wind, got a near fall. He hit the Twist of Fate, and he went up top for the Swanton Bomb. However, Lashley got himself back up, and you know he had attempted several hurt locks during the match. He could not get it locked into Jeff Hardy. He was finally able to do it, and Hardy tapped out to Lashley. After the match, Lashley would not let go. Matt Riddle came in to make the save, and MVP, Lashley, they took their leave. MVP started eating some of Riddle's bro nuts. He had Riddle's nuts in his mouth. And this was pretty enjoyable. This and the handicap match were pretty solid. And I did like MVP eating the bro nuts. That was a nice touch. And JSpin401 says the Hurt Business is booming and essential. Indeed it is. And Lashley continues to be booked very well. You know, a lot of guys not being booked well, but Lashley, ever since he got away from that Lana storyline and got paired up with MVP, it's been a nice rebound for Lashley in WWE. Backstage, Randy Orton was getting ready in the locker room area, and he was confronted by Rambling Rabbit, who said that Bray Wyatt was ready to go and it was going to be so much fun. We had our match, of course, Mr. Rogers, Bray Wyatt versus Randy Orton. And it quickly went to the outside of the ring. Orton, who usually suplexes people on the table, he got suplexed on the table by Wyatt, but later Orton turned the tables and got his suplex. Match went back and forth for a while, and Wyatt went for Sister Abigail but got a thumb to the eye, and Orton hit the draping DDT. He was going to finish off Bray Wyatt with the RKO, but the lights started coming down, and he hit the RKO, but then the lights went completely out, and when they came back on, instead of Bray Wyatt lying on the mat, it was The Fiend. And somebody asked how this was pulled off. Easy. They pre-taped the end with The Fiend and Orton and just inserted that at the end of the show. And that's one thing you can do during the COVID era. You can edit and do the pre-tape stuff for the effect. So after that, The Fiend attacked Orton and put on the mandible claw, and that was the end of Raw, with The Fiend getting the upper hand on Randy Orton leading into the match. So yeah, it was pretty clear Randy Orton was going to beat Bray Wyatt, but of course The Fiend is a whole nother beast, and when you put on that mask, it's a different entity, even though that entity lost to Bill Goldberg in 5 minutes in Saudi Arabia. But we'll just pretend that never happened. That was Raw, everybody. Show was average, kind of boring a little bit, but you had a few good matches. Like I said, if I was going to recommend watching anything, the Jeff Hardy-Lashley match, really good. And I like what's going on with Lashley. He's a credible champion. What a novel concept. And the 2-on-3 match, you know, the Sheamus McIntyre stuff has been entertaining. Everything else was kind of eh. You know, the Kofi stuff, match was good, but eh. Game is on 100 with the $2 super chat. Thank you. Says Orton to lose to The Fiend, LOL. Well, if The Fiend loses, people will complain. If Randy Orton loses, people will complain. It's like a no-win situation. Maybe they'll do some kind of screw job with that one. But if you can't really book a clean finish, why even book the match in the first place? Jeremy Dorset says B-, Mr. Anderson B+, Israel Diaz with a B-, Paula with an A-, interesting. Ace and his familiar Vlogs A-, Kim Hall B-, Bruce Marvel with a B, CC Drink C+, Kev with a C, Amanda with a B. Pretty solid grades from you guys. I'm going to go again with a C. Average, run-of-the-mill Raw. If you're loving Raw these days, you'll like it. If you hate Raw these days, you'll hate it. I mean, it's pretty standard. It's pretty standard by what you would expect, whatever you consider Raw to be as of late. This is pretty much what it was. You know, it wasn't better or worse than what it usually is. It was just a show. Just a wrestling show on a Monday night. You know, nothing too great, nothing too terrible. Just a show where, yeah, some matches, recaps, of course, and all that stuff. So we'll see what happens next week when they move to Tropicana Field. Thank you guys for tuning in tonight. I appreciate it as always. And again, if you enjoyed the video, share it, tell a friend. I did want to plug the Cat Diaries mug, which advertises my personal channel. It's got some pictures of my cats on there. You can go over onto my Twitter account at Aaron Rift, and there's a link for it. It's also in the No DQ store over at nodq.com/merch. You could still buy merchandise for nodq.com. If you buy it this week, you'll get it in time for Christmas. Maybe give it to a gift as a friend. Thank you guys, however you support the site, whether it's just visiting or buying the merch or telling a friend. Thank you guys for everything, and I will see you all next time. Stay positive.